They say nothing ever happens in quiet, expensive neighborhoods. That bad things stay on the other side of town, far away from trimmed hedges and iron gates. I used to believe that too. Until one afternoon in broad daylight, standing in my own driveway, I learned exactly how fast a stranger can decide who you are, what you deserve, and whether you belong. And once they decide that everything else becomes optional. Yeah, that day changed me. I wasn't dressed like someone important. That's probably where it started. Old t-shirt, faded shorts, hair tied back because it was hot and I was tired of fighting it. I'd spent the morning doing something normal for once, pulling weeds, trimming bushes, trying to make my yard look halfway decent. It was quiet, almost peaceful. The kind of silence that makes you forget the rest of the world exists. For a moment, I wasn't a title, a resume someone could Google. I was just a person enjoying a rare calm. Then I heard the tires. Slow, deliberate, gravel crunching under weight. I didn't even look up at first. Cars roll through that street all the time. But the sound stopped, right in front of my house. I glanced up and saw the patrol car idling there, engine humming like it was thinking. The driver stayed inside for a beat too long, and that's when I felt it. That subtle shift in the air, the moment when peace turns into something else. He stepped out like he owned the place. Crisp uniform boots that hadn't seen real dirt, posture tight with confidence he hadn't earned yet. He didn't say hello, didn't ask how my day was going. He looked past me at the house, at the garage, at the windows like I was just another object in the frame. Then he spoke. Homeowners aren't supposed to be here right now. Not a question. A conclusion. I wiped my hands on my shorts and told him I was the homeowner. Simple. Calm. The truth. He smiled just a little, the kind of smile that tells you he already decided you're wrong. He said there had been reports of people hanging around soliciting, pretending to work in the area. Asked for my ID, like it was the most reasonable thing in the world. Something in my chest tightened. Not fear yet, recognition. That familiar feeling you get when you realize this isn't about what you're doing, it's about what he thinks you are. I told him I didn't have ID on me. I told him I lived there. I even laughed a little, trying to keep it light. He didn't laugh back. You don't look like you live here, he said. There it was. Clean, honest, ugly. I stood up straighter without even thinking about it and asked him what exactly a homeowner was supposed to look like. He didn't answer. He just stepped closer, voice firmer now, telling me to stop being difficult, telling me I was refusing a lawful order. That's when I knew this wasn't going to end with him driving away. I turned back toward my yard. Not to disrespect him, not to escalate, but because I genuinely believed logic would win. That if I removed myself from the conversation, it would deflate. Instead, it lit the fuse. "Hey," he barked, "I didn't say you could walk away." I froze, took a breath, turned slowly so he could see my hands. I told him he was making a mistake, a serious one. I told him to call his supervisor. That's when his face changed. The smile disappeared. The politeness dropped. What was left was raw authority, the kind that doesn't want to be questioned. He told me to get on the ground. I said no, not loudly, not dramatically, just no. And in that second, I watched his pride wrestle with reality, and pride won. He grabbed my arm, twisted it behind my back so hard my vision flashed white. I shouted for him to stop. He yelled that I was resisting. He swept my legs, and the next thing I knew, my face was against gravel breath, gone weight crushing into my back. Everything after that blurred together. The cuffs snapping tight, too tight. His knee pressing down like he needed to prove something. My voice shaking as I told him I wasn't resisting, that he was hurting me. None of it mattered. He had a story now, and I was the villain in it. The back of the patrol car smelled like chemicals and old mistakes. I sat there, wrists burning, heart pounding, staring at the scratched plastic divider and wondering how something so small spiraled so fast. He radioed it in. Female, uncooperative, trespassing, claimed to live here, claimed to be someone important. I almost laughed at that part, almost. At the station, he marched me in like a trophy, dropped my gardening tools on the counter like evidence, told the desk officer I'd resisted arrest, When I stated my name and who I was, the room went quiet for half a second before he laughed and told them to book me anyway. Even added an assault charge for flavor. They fingerprinted me by force, put me in a cell, slammed the door, and sitting there staring at concrete walls, something inside me hardened. The fear faded. What replaced it was clarity. This wasn't just about me anymore. It was about every person who didn't have a voice loud enough to be heard over a badge. Then the system finally caught up. I didn't hear the panic at first, but I felt the shift. Doors opening, footsteps rushing, voices dropping. The cell door opened and suddenly everyone was apologizing at once. The chief, supervisors, people who hadn't cared 5 minutes earlier. I walked out with my wrists swollen, my clothes dirty, my dignity bruised, but intact. I looked straight at the officer who started it all, asked for his badge, his weapon, the footage, immediately. He handed everything over with shaking hands, the confidence gone replaced by something small and scared. They drove me home. The city tried to make it disappear the next morning. Money, silence, paperwork. I said no, loudly, publicly. We released everything. The footage didn't lie. People saw what happened. They heard his words. They watched how quickly routine turned into violence. The outrage was instant. The fallout was brutal. Investigations, resignations, apologies that came too late. In the end, the city paid. Not just in money, but in reputation. The officer lost his job, his future, his certainty. And when the settlement came, I made sure it wasn't the end of the story. I turned it into something that would outlive both of us. Almost a year later, I stood in the same driveway. Same sun, same gravel. A patrol car passed by slowly. The officer waved, drove on, and I realized something important. Justice doesn't arrive on its own. It shows up when someone refuses to stay quiet. So here's my question for you. If that had been you, would you have taken the easy exit and moved on, or would you have forced the truth into the light, knowing it would get messy? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I want to know where you stand.